I'm Ashley,
I'm Danny.
and we created this kind of like not YouTube channel, but little vlog to update folks on our fertility process. And we wanted to create this because we're learning so much, and we wanted to share that with other folks. And also, so many of our family and friends like gave to gave to our fund like after we got married. So just in order a way for us to give back to the folks that really contributed to our journey, I thought it would be nice to share what we're learning, share some of our journey. I don't know, do you have anything?
Yeah, I feel like we're entering a whole new world and there is so much to learn and so many choices to make that it's kind of overwhelming at times. And so sometimes when I feel really strongly about something, I realize I'm not the only one that feels that way. So yeah, I hope this like video series will also support people as they enter the same or similar journey.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, it's very vulnerable to share. So we may not share everything because there's so many parts of the journey that might feel really hard. Like if we have a loss or if we're trying and we have many different attempts and we don't make it. So we probably won't share every single detail. But we want to share as much as we feel comfortable at this point in the process. So, yeah.
Should we talk about how we met?
Yeah. You start?
Well, we met on Hinge. And Ashley likes to say that our first date was at
the Mediterranean Chipotle.
And I suggested it as somewhere casual to me, but we had been talking on the app for a few months, waiting to get vaccinated because this was in the spring of
like
2021.
Yeah.
So we had been talking for a few months, had a really amazing conversation, and even though we felt differently about dogs licking our faces, we still decided to meet up. And then at our first date, we just sat there for hours until it got dark out, and we,
Yeah, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
It was very special. I feel very lucky to have found each other. Mm-hmm. And we recently got married in November, and we've been talking about I think when we started dating, I was like very forthright at some point that I really wanted to have kids and I really wanted to be a mom. So, once we kind of got to being like kind of legally committed to each other, then we started talking about this process.
When we think about becoming queer moms, I think there's a lot of things that come up for each of us individually and together. I think for me, as someone who had a lot of straight relationships and was very easy to get pregnant, it's now, this process is so much different than I had ever anticipated. And so at first, I think the idea of getting pregnant and having a baby felt really daunting and really difficult and like kind of heavy in the very beginning, when we first started talking about it. And then like over the years, I think it has also opened me up to the fact that there's actually so many choices that we can make in each step of the process, and we have to be so intentional about every single choice that we do make. And so I feel like it kind of fits into, I don't know, like my experience in my queer journey of like opening up a world of possibilities and doing things that are kind of outside of the norm.
Yeah.
Or outside of what a lot of my friends are doing at this stage, or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What felt heavy and daunting in the beginning?
Just because I'm like, wow, I can't like get pregnant just by having sex, and I just always thought that was the way to get pregnant. And I know that's not even for straight couples, that's not always true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just felt like there's so many steps to take, and also every step is really expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I guess my point is that like it actually does feel a little bit liberating because I don't know, we can choose each step together, and we have a lot of information as we go about it together.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I've always wanted to be a mom. And early on when, I came out, I wasn't sure like how I was going to be able to be a mom. I think I thought the only way would be like adoption. Mm-hmm. And there are so many ways to become like a queer parent if you're in a like same-sex relationship or you for some reason like can't get pregnant like naturally. So I think like reimagining parenthood and queer family was just like reimagining what I thought family looked like, whether it was like through biology or through just like a very specific way. So, yeah, I think part of coming out is also reimagining like what things are going to look like and how you're going to go about it and trying to, yeah, like having new definitions for like what makes a family, definitely. Do you want to talk about? So yeah, when we got started, well, the conversation really started in couples therapy. You know, when we were trying to like kind of get to the point of being like, this is something that we're going to definitely do, and what does it mean? Because like at our age too, for me, like being 38, past the geriatric pregnancy part. You know, the conversation felt important for me to have like early on as we were talking about being committed to each other, because I knew it's something I really wanted, and I wanted to know and understand like what Danny wanted as well. And so we really started that conversation in couples therapy, just talking through like how that felt for us. And I mean, there are things that even come up like, you know, our biological connection to the child, and what will it feel like to be parents, and what does it mean for us as queer people who are like early on in our coming out phase to like kind of like catapult into parenthood. What does it mean to have become parents so early into like being married to each other and all of those things. So it was really helpful to talk to our couples therapist about it and kind of navigate that so that the process could feel a little bit more like we were choosing it.
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
I don't think so. What are we nervous about?
I'm nervous about how long it could take and like pregnancy loss and the toll it could take on each of us as individuals, as a couple, and just like how expensive it's going to be and all of those things.
Yeah, I think my fears are similar. I always say I don't want it to feel like we're gambling with so much money. It's like every attempt at pregnancy is so much money, and also just so much like emotions attached to it as well. And so if we do experience, you know, multiple failed attempts or like a pregnancy loss or multiple pregnancy losses, I just get afraid of my desire. Like if it's something that we want so bad that we'll just like one more time. And yeah, but I think when I start to kind of go down that rabbit hole, I just have to stop myself, because it's like, okay, that's not our present reality, and there's nothing that we can do in this moment to like change that from happening or not happening. Like all we can do is take the next step forward. And honestly, I think that is something that like we practiced a lot in couples therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, our first step after getting through just sort of like, I wouldn't say our blocks, but talking through it, was we did the AI clinic at Fenway, and
not artificial intelligence. artificial insemination.
Which was really helpful because we actually had no idea where to start. Like we didn't know what process we were going to go through and how to do it. And that was really helpful in getting us like a layout of like the different options. Like they went through what IUI was, and they went through what IVF was, and they have like just different resources for you to get connected to people. So, what is that?
Oh, when you do a thumbs up, it goes.
Okay. But yeah, it was like very informative, and I felt like a good way to kind of launch into it. Ultimately, we decided not to do it, but I think that it was really useful to learn about it in that format. Anything you'd add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of gave us the beginning, like terminology.
Yes.
And options that are available to us. Even though AI is the only thing that program does, it's like we still learned about all the other options as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that was the time I learned about like what the difference between IUI and IVF is.
Yeah,
which maybe we should say.
Yeah. Yeah, so
IUI is intrauterine insemination or artificial insemination. It's when the sperm is inserted into your uterus. And IVF is when you someone does an egg retrieval, and then you fertilize the egg with the sperm outside of a body, and then you insert the embryo back in.
Yeah, exactly. And so through the Fenway program, they only do IUI, and they will support you through that process, but their goal, it's different than like maybe a fertility clinic where they might try multiple things, or they'll do IVF. So ultimately we decided not to go with the AI clinic and go through a fertility center. And for insurance reasons, and I think just at the recommendation of our doctor at this point, we'll start with IUI. We also took some time to review each of our insurance plans because we were trying to decide which one we should go on. In order to access IVF, we have to prove that we're infertile, and since there's no like sperm in our relationship, which I think is like the insurance term, we have to do a certain number of rounds of IUI where they'll like insert the donor sperm into me first. And then if those fail, then we can go to IVF, where we'll be taking like the fertility medications and creating embryos and then implanting those. So yeah, we found great. I mean, I like our doctor so far. We're at the MGH fertility clinic. It feels like there's more of a focus on they want to get you pregnant. So if things aren't working, they'll try new things, or they'll change the sperm, or, they'll just like really work with you to get pregnant. And there's a lot of testing. Just went through a lot of testing on the front hand as well to make sure that those attempts are successful.
I think the other thing that we should mention is that like some couples decide to get pregnant using like someone's sperm that they know, or get sperm. There's a lot of like online forums we've heard about that you can kind of get sperm from someone and then do artificial insemination at home. And I do think that's something that Fenway like helps support is at home insemination.
Exactly.
And I think like one of the things that we decided pretty early on was that we wanted to go through an anonymous sperm donor.
Yeah.
So that we didn't know the person. We decided to go through a sperm bank. So we have several options of sperm banks, and at this point, we have one sperm donor. Is this for the next video?
We could talk about. Maybe we could talk about that whole process. That's okay. Just keep talking.
Okay. Well, we'll go into that.
We'll go in the selection process later, but
I just wanted to mention that when we're talking about like the artificial insemination versus IVF and like what we ended up choosing.
Yeah. And I think too, like for my age and the risk, like, I think maybe if we were younger, we would try something at home or, but I think at my age and like just having the support of a fertility clinic, plus insurance doesn't cover at-home insemination. So it would need to be through a clinic. So it just makes more sense for us. And having like an anonymous donor that our kid can have access to at a different point just makes more sense to us as well. But yeah, we also got the book Queer Conception, which really gave us a really good overview of the whole process. So
we should show the book.
Yeah, maybe I can figure out how to insert like a little.
That's a good idea.
If you see it, then we figured it out. But so the first steps, like, we'll talk. Maybe the next video we'll talk through more of like our process of like selecting a sperm donor and the sperm banks and how we sort of did that. But that is one of the things is we first did is like just look and see what's out there. And then we obviously selected a fertility clinic and a doctor that we feel comfortable with. And then like for me, since I'll be carrying first, just like I started taking prenatal vitamins in January, started working out more, started limiting alcohol, like trying to be more conscious of what because I guess with our diet, like being more vegan and dairy free, like trying to be a little bit more conscious of what I'm eating.
We're eating more protein. I think we're trying to eat more like nutrient dense food.
Yeah,
things like that.
Try to limit soy and like really try to hone in. Yeah. And so I just went through like we had our initial visit with our fertility specialist, and then she ordered a lot of testing for both of us, and I went through my first round of testing, which probably do a whole video of that, but
once we learn what everything is.
Exactly. But basically like they do it by cycle. So on the first day of my most recent cycle, I called and they scheduled a bunch of different tests. The first one was a blood test that they do on cycle day 3, which is like the point at which they can better understand your fertility or your estrogen or a lot of your like hormone producing things. So I got 13 vials of blood taken, and they did so much testing. They also do like some STI testing, and then just like general like blood count, things like that. So probably do a whole video on that. And then they just give you the results, and then we'll have another meeting, another doctor's visit where we'll actually go through and she'll explain to us what does it mean for like my fertility at this point. Danny will also have to do the same thing. And then this week I have a vaginal ultrasound and then something called an HSG, which is where they like insert a catheter into you and insert iodine, and they basically just like fill up your
uterus and fallopian tubes
and
with
see
a dye.
and see if there's any blockages. The dye will help them, like, as they're looking at it, to see if there's any blockages that might like impede your fertility or affect your implementation. So those are the initial tests that I'm going to be doing. And then, yeah, anything to add there?
No, I think, yeah, I mean, I guess for my own prep, I'm also going to go through the fertility testing, so that we just have all the information up front, so that, you know, we can kind of figure it out step by step. If things aren't going the way that we want them to be going with you, we can look at me getting pregnant. But eventually, I guess we should say that eventually I do want to get pregnant. But in our ideal world, you would get pregnant and give birth, and then I would get pregnant and give birth about 2-ish years later.
Yeah.
But I think part of this is also, we have a ideal world, and we also live in the real world, so we're trying to be a little bit flexible and have an open mind in each step too, and just try to keep choosing the next step that's best for us.
Yeah.
So my first step in terms of the prep was to get my IUD out, which was so fun. It was painful, not as painful as getting it in, but hormonally, it was a disaster. So I guess, I don't know, that's something I wish I knew to prepare for, is just like the mood swings and the extreme emotional agitation, I guess.
Yeah.
But now I feel like it's been, what, a couple weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks or so, and so, yeah, I'm feeling good now. But I have to wait 2 cycles. 2 period cycles until I can actually do the fertility testing. And then I'll be doing all the same things that Ashley is doing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's like a good first introduction. Hopefully you gleaned something from everything we just said. But I think in future videos, we'll talk about like our sperm donation, like selecting a sperm donor, and sort of some of the challenges that we faced, and like talk through like some of what we learned from our testing possibly. And I guess if you have questions, anything like that as well.
Can't say we're experts, but we can tell you about our experience.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for following along. I mean, I think we feel like we have a good foundation of a support system, and we're also excited because I think that every time we talk about this with a friend, they're like, oh, we have other queer friends that have been through IVF that would love to talk to you. And so hopefully doing these videos also will kind of like gather some community around us, mutual community as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're just kind of excited for the journey to have you all with us. So thanks for supporting us. And feel free to reach out if you have more questions. We'll either answer it or do a video.
I feel like we need a tagline to end, like,
that's the daily egg.
Until the baby comes.